Welcome to another edition of Lean Bites. Thanks for joining me today. My name is Paul Dean. Today's edition of Lean Bites, we're going to look at a leadership principle made popular over recent years called Napoleon's Corporal. Now, Napoleon Bonaparte is well known as one of the greatest war commanders in history. One of the most fascinating principles of his war strategy involves something that we now refer to as Napoleon's Corporal. The story goes that during the battle plan meetings, while Napoleon was with his generals, he would invite in one of his corporals to come into the meeting. And while Napoleon was discussing the plans with his generals, the corporal would be shining his boots. He knew the corporal would be listening in on the conversation amongst the generals. So after the meeting, he would ask the corporal if he could repeat the conversation and the plans. And if the corporal could repeat the strategy and show that he understood the plans, then Napoleon would continue with the strategy. If the corporal couldn't, then Napoleon would reconvene his generals and either amend or draft new plans. The principle being that the strategy had to be clear and unambiguous to ensure every general and their troops executed the agreed plans precisely. This was a brilliant exercise, as it ensured that the plans were simple enough so they could be communicated across the many different people. Even if there's a minuscule amount of confusion, this has the potential to derail the plans, and in the case of war, significant losses are possible. So how can we take advantage of Napoleon's Corporal? Well, I've developed a few tips to help harness this principle to bring benefits in building your leadership culture. Number one, clarity in your plans. The purpose of the strategy meeting was to develop plans that were clear, simple, and unambiguous. When you're all creating a strategy or cascading it into plans that involve your frontline team members, inviting someone from outside the management team is a critical step to ensure their outcome is clear. The key process is to ensure the plans are clear and simple and easy to understand by your frontline team leaders and their frontline team members. Asking for their opinion to ensure that the plans are clear and easy to understand will bring significant benefits. Number two, external perspective and knowledge. Now, the corporal didn't have the same perspective and knowledge as the generals in the room, but it was the corporal who would be the one with his troops to implement this strategy. This is an important step to seek feedback from the one who would be doing the implementation. It's very easy to get caught up in the strategy and the plans and assume that they all make sense to us. We're all very clever people. You don't get to be a general or senior leader without being smart like us, so surely our plans and strategy are sensible. Well, let's not be arrogant and assume we're right. Let's invite others to sense check our strategy. Is it a sound strategy? Are there aspects that we haven't yet considered? These are the questions to ask. Number three, language. Now, the generals would have been easily comfortable with using jargon and technical language. In fact, jargon was commonplace when the generals spoke to one another. But the use of jargon can cloud the real message, particularly if there's a misunderstanding of various terms. But what about sharing that same information with their direct reports and the troops? This is where the message could become confused. So to avoid confusion, your strategy and planning meeting must be free from jargon and other technical terms. So when we're creating plans or formulating a strategy, let's avoid terms, jargon, three-letter acronyms. In fact, let's avoid any words or phrases that can create confusion. Number four, inclusion shows respect. For me, by far the most powerful aspect of this principle is about respect for the frontline team leaders. By simply inviting the corporal in, who depicts the frontline team leaders, into the process reveals a lot about the culture of the management team and the organisation. Napoleon was interested in the corporal's feedback. It was a sign of respect not only to invite him into the meeting, but ask for his opinion. How powerful it is to bring a frontline team leader or perhaps a frontline team member into a strategy meeting. It builds respect for your people and it's an excellent opportunity. I'm not suggesting as a token gesture just to make it look good, but really engage them in the process. And I've encountered organizations that have mastered the whole engagement equation, that seek feedback from frontline team members by inviting them into planning meetings. I really believe that this principle of Napoleon's Corporal can teach us a lot about leadership. And if you consider these 4 points, I believe that you're on the pathway to building a better culture and a stronger business. I hope this has been very helpful, and I'd like to leave you with something to ponder. Courage isn't having the strength to go on, it is going on when you don't have strength. Napoleon Bonaparte. Thanks for joining me on this edition of Lean Bites.